welcome to Tommy Surfs. I'm Tommy, and this video is a review of the Modern 2 by Sharpeye. This specific board is in the Surftech E2 construction. Now I opted for the 5.6, which is 19 3/4 wide, 2.5 inches thick, and it comes in at about 29.6 liters. I'm 5'8" and I weigh 145 pounds. The reason I went with the 5.6 over the 5.4 is that I saw Felipe Toledo riding the 5.6 and it just looked right. The size looked right, everything looked right about it. Whereas I saw Noel Solis surfing the 5.4 and it looked a tad too small for him. So I thought I would go with a 5.6 just for appearances, and I feel like after having surfed it 20 times that I made the right choice. The Modern 2 was designed to be a crossbreed between the old MR Twin from the 80s and basically a high-performance thruster of today. Now, before diving in, let me start off by saying that I love this board. If not as much, possibly even more than the Seaside. And the reason is, I feel like the Seaside works perfectly and ideally in 1.5 to about 3 foot of surf. And then as it gets bigger, it starts to taper off as you lose performance. You could still make it work, but you do lose some performance. Whereas I feel this board still works from 1.5 because I'm riding it bigger, 29. In fact, this is more liters than my 5.3 Seaside. It works from 1.5 possibly to 4 feet, maybe even 5, and then tapers off from there. One takeaway is that this board actually surfs and feels shorter than it is. So to give you a comparison, this actually surfs like it's smaller than my 5.3 Seaside. So another mind-blowing contradiction to everything I thought was true is the contours of this board. I've said it in several reviews and several videos, I love concaves. And this board, from nose to tail, is V. And I just thought concaves were it. This board has plenty of drive, and maybe it's the larger fins and the cant on the fins, but it has plenty of lift. I feel like the board is just as fast as the Seaside. So now we're going to look at the board and how it surfs. And the first few footage is going to be from the first few days I've actually surfed this board. This is day 1 and 2. Now, the extra length in the board gives it a nice feel to the swing weight. And I think that's very important for how it looks when you're looking at it, as well as how it feels. And one of the things I noticed, like in that wave, if you notice, my nose poked. And here, same thing. The nose went completely underwater, and with the Seaside at 5.3, I would have probably purled, but in this particular case, because of the longer board, it just came right out. And I noticed that with the V throughout and the longer board, the board glides over whitewater sections. So now looking at day 3 and 4, what I started to do is I started to kind of push more of the off the lips, and I have to say they really feel good. And my brother has mentioned it, you know, because he's the one who was filming all 4 of these days. He says more or less that the board looks better than me surfing the Seaside. So you guys take a look and let me know what you think. Let me know if you think it looks better on me than the Seaside. So now looking at day 5 and beyond, no pun intended, the waves got a little bit better, and day 5 and beyond is this year more recently, and I've dedicated about 3 weeks to surfing this thing, and we've had some pretty okay days. So now this board is super responsive. Coming off the neckbeard, I would say it's more responsive than the neckbeard. And driving off the bottom, it seems like I get a lot of projection and speed, which makes the top turn a lot easier. And then I get these really quick wraps, and they're faster than what I'm used to, so I end up not pulling them sometimes. The rebound kind of just catches me by surprise. But I feel like my turns are fuller, and I have drive throughout the turn. And then because of the 2+1 setup, I get this little whip at the top, or release, I guess you can call it. So here's one of my favorite turns, and I went kind of vert, and I thought it was a pretty decent turn. Right to the bottom, right back to the top. So really responsive, very, very pivoty with these particular fins. And I did try a rake back fin because I lost an MR side fin, and the rake back fin works just as well. It's just a little bit tighter, but it has the same release, because once you let go of that stabilizer fin, the thing just breaks free. I'll have to try it as a thruster and maybe other fin setups to see what the differences are, but as a 2+1, as it was designed and intended, it's amazing. And this board is super fast down the line, and here I literally surf right over the whitewash. Now we've looked at a few soft days, and this one here is a little bit faster, down the line kind of day, and I spent most of this day just trying to keep up with the corners, so definitely needed a fast board, and this board did very well to keep up. It was it was easy to catch waves. 2, it was very quick to respond right off the bat, so it would I would have a lot of good initial speed, and then building up that speed with the drive from the fins is very, very helpful. And a lot of times, vertical waves are hard because that water is drawing up the face, and it actually kind of slows you down because it wants to push you up. So you really have to have a board that's responsive. So as a recap, since you're going to want to ride this board bigger than what you would think, I would say that that initially makes it a better groveler, and it's going to be easy to catch waves. Because of the rocker, it's got easy entry and exit rockers, so it's going to be fast down the line. And it's got a great deal of pivot and drive because it's a twin fin plus a stabilizer. And again, I have no explanation for the V-bottom. I always thought concaves was what created all the drive and lift, but somehow this is a contradiction. And but it's not a bad contradiction because it works. So even though I can't explain it, this board works. And I think, based on the years that MR has put into it, and obviously the talent that Marcio from Sharpeye has, he was able to put this board together, and it's an amazing, amazing surfboard. And it's gonna probably be my staple and my daily driver from this point moving forward. I didn't want to like it. I love my Seaside still, but I think I'm going to dedicate that to smaller days because it is a little skatier and surfs on top. This one, maybe because of the V-bottom, it actually felt like I was in the wave driving and pushing water, and it felt really good. And maybe that's what makes it feel like a PU. I don't know. I like this board a great deal. So I don't know if I mentioned it, but this Surftech E2 construction, it's an epoxy board, and it uses carbon to control the flex, like a stringer. But the materials used are so light. It's the lightest board I own. It's even light. I would say it's probably on par with the helium boards, possibly even lighter, because I feel like there's just less material used. For that reason, the helium's way stronger. The decks don't pressure as much. This particular board kind of pressures like an LFT, if you're familiar with Firewire, or it pressures like a PU, except the pressures aren't concentrated. They get kind of spread out. So it's not as deep. They're shallow, but they're a little bit more spread out. I apologize for the video here because these are the 2 best days, and I didn't have my camera. One day I didn't have my camera. The second day I didn't have an SD card. I forgot to bring the SD card. So fortunately, we ended up in the zone of the surf cam, and I'm not going to tell you where this is. If you recognize it, great. It's a secret, but not so secret surf spot. Just south of this, where we were surfing in the camera zone, was actually better. But once I figured out there was a camera here, I was like, you know what? I'd rather get the footage and surf good waves than the epic waves that were just south of us. So, and it was totally empty. So didn't matter. I mean, I was just picking out the best possible waves I could. But look at the amount of speed I get on these waves, the torque. The pivot, it's just an amazing board. Anyways, if you think you know where this spot is, comment below, because I'd be curious to know if you know your cams and just the break. This is not how it normally looks. This break somehow was epic these 2 days, and my brother just had this wild hair, hey, let's go surf this place and just avoid the crowds. And 2 days in a row, nobody out. And in fact, these are 2 days, and I don't know if you could tell by the footage, but one thing I would really appreciate is if you guys would comment and to tell me how you want me to format. You know, I see, and I've done this before, where I put music to it, you know, and then I go back and forth between music and talking. And then there's this one here, I did all talking. I started with music, all talking. I don't know what's better, but I just want to make sure that people aren't tuning out, right? Because I feel like I say some key things throughout the video. I don't condense it into one part, so I would hate for people to miss something, right? But at any rate, I really appreciate you guys watching. Like, subscribe, and spread the word. And I'll try to get some more videos out, and hopefully I'll get some more boards to review.